Right, so today I want to talk about the ethics of influence. Because there's a lot of salespeople, especially beginning salespeople, entrepreneurs, who struggle to sell because they don't believe that it's the right thing to do. If you are with your clients and you're someone who may be a little bit introverted or you just don't really have the sales mindset, then it can feel like you're putting on a persona that's not you. And more than that, it also actually feels wrong. At least this was the case for me. I know when I started to learn about selling and persuasion, to me it felt like I was doing something wrong. I was doing these things, but like in my mind, I was like very conflicted about it. And it took me actually a very long time to see this because I think maybe also because of my personality, I was a little bit more introverted. So, really, when you think about it, when you are selling or when you're trying to persuade someone, you need to understand that that in itself is just a tool. Like, let's say, the army. The army has weapons. Weapons are a tool. So, I wouldn't even necessarily compare it to that. But the point is, weapons can be both used for good and for bad. So, it's the same thing with influence and with sales. You can use it to manipulate people in a bad way, or you can use it for good. You can use it, for example, if someone has a situation they are struggling with, maybe they are introverted, maybe you want to help them socially, or maybe just consider that you are like a doctor and your patient needs is coming to you because they need consultancy, that they need to know what's wrong with their health. And so, that's one part, that is like the consultant part. But then also, as a doctor, you also need to be able to persuade your clients if they don't want to make like the right choices, or if they perhaps don't believe you, then you need to be able to persuade them. And so you can do that actually coming from a very, very good place. It all depends on how you go about it, really, and what your personality is. Because for me, when I was starting out, I actually wasn't coming from a good place. Perhaps that's partly because I was conflicted about sales. Well, that was definitely it. But also, in my mind, I was always trying to, I need to persuade them because, they're probably otherwise I will be inferior, or like I will not be able to prove my point, or it's like I gotta do that because I need to win the game. And that's what created a lot of like ethical conundrums or whatever. And so that was a bit difficult. But the more you work with clients, the more you can see that it can actually be applied in a very good way as well. Now, it all depends on what you do with it, because, like I said, there are people who do use it. Like, there's con people, so many people who do like theft and stuff like that. So there is like a thing called social engineering, and that's uh, like computer hackers, but then with social skills. Uh, Kevin Mitnick is like a famous, or like famous, more like the opposite of famous, because he did some nasty stuff that he shouldn't have done. But the point is, he used persuasion, but not in a good way. So it's really up to you what you do with it. And the more you come from the place authentically, I want to help this person, then You just do, you just see what the person needs, then you use the tools that you learn about human behavior, about how the mind works, about how emotions work, about how persuasion works. You use these tools to get people to think about the way they're thinking about their situation. And then you move them from there, right? That's how you can do it in a good way. You just always come from a place of how do I help these people, and how do I help this person, and what does this person right now need to believe or need to ask himself in order to take one step towards the right direction, take one step towards improvement, improvement in his health, improvement in his business, improvement in his social life. What question does this person need to ask himself, or what insight does he need to be challenged on in order for him to see improvement? That's really your job as a salesperson, especially when you're doing the more deeper calls, which are like a lot of the time in sales what you do. There's also the other side sometimes where it's less about the current situation, the desired situation. It's less about why they need a product, and sometimes it's just like how do they want to make the investment, or how do they want to move forward, and do they want to get started, and things like that. That's more like the objection handling, the closing part, and sometimes that's depending on what you're selling, that takes more of a front seat. But even in that, like, there's also a lot of psychology involved, a lot of human emotions involved. And so really, it all depends on how you use it. You know, marketing, can you say that marketing is a good thing? Can you say that sales is a good thing? You know, not really. They're just tools. Most people use them in a fairly decent way, but it depends. Like, some people don't use them fairly at all, and some people are like really try to be really conscious about it. It all depends on the way you go about it. So it's up to you what you make of it, right? But I think really just the problem a lot of people have, and that I had in the beginning, was that I just felt like if I try to influence someone, that's wrong. Even though I was trying to do good things with it, it just felt wrong. Just the fact that I was trying to influence someone, because you shouldn't do that. But you know, the more you think about it, the more you will see. But why not? Why not you? Why can you not be the person that helps this person? The more you think about it, because oftentimes if you are passive, if you don't react, if you don't do anything with people, if they are in a problem situation and you're just passive, you know, that's not necessarily better than taking action. In fact, taking action, trying to help the person might be a better thing. It probably is. You know, at the end of the day, it does take a lot of fine-tuning and nuances, because even if you want to help the person, you still need to be able to, and the other person also needs to be able to accept the help. So that's what I would say. Now, this video is a little bit jumbled, I'm sorry for that, but I hope I was able to share some cool things. But check out my next video if you want, and I'll see you guys later. Cheers.